As a result of the great work of many caring professionals, students across our state are being taught and nurtured in schools every day. However, in our communities, violence is playing just as prevalent a role. In growing numbers, incidents of violence are impacting our students. Therefore, public safety personnel and public school systems must work together to address these issues. Historically, Virginia schools and schools in general are very safe places, but an emergency can alter the sense of calm and community we enjoy in a matter of seconds. This training has been developed by the Virginia Center for School Safety, the Department of Criminal Justice Services, the Virginia Department of Education, the Virginia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services, and the Virginia Department of State Police to increase your awareness of active shooter and armed intruder situations and the 3 main response actions you can employ when responding to such threats, with the main focus on the lockdown action.
The term active shooter is used by law enforcement officials to describe a situation where a person participates in a random or systematic shooting spree in a confined or populated area. In most cases, the active shooter uses firearms, and there's no pattern or method to the selection of their victims. Active shooters can include unstable persons, whether they are unknown to the school or are other students, armed criminals, or in rare cases, domestic or international terrorists. Active shooters can target a school, university, or child care center. Active shooters can also target social venues such as sporting events, museums, rail and bus stations, and recreational facilities where students may visit during field trips. As such, staff must be vigilant and aware of their surroundings and understand how to respond should a physical threat occur, whenever and wherever that may happen. While active shooter situations are very rare, staff should be prepared to respond appropriately and effectively if they ever find themselves in such a situation, knowing how to respond and protect students and themselves should a physical threat occur.
This training will illustrate what you can do to identify a threat and respond to it effectively and confidently, protecting not only your students but also yourself and other members of staff. The following principles are critical for successfully preparing for and responding to an emergency situation. Effectively activating the plan, effective decision-making, flexible and adaptable management strategies, working collaboratively within the community, developing strong relationships with local police departments, making informed decisions, ensuring effective communications, deploying resources quickly and efficiently, accounting for students and staff, and assisting people with special needs. School administrators and staff, including teachers, teachers' aides, or support staff, all have an important role within our communities. They are responsible for the personal and educational development of our children. Within today's volatile world, our role now also extends beyond the scope many of us envisioned when we entered into the education profession. Increasingly, responsibilities also now lie with the physical safety and security of those children under our care, whether students are in a learning environment, at lunch, in gym or recess, or on a field trip. While this second responsibility is one we never hope to have to put into practice, emergencies do occur, and so it is important that all staff understand the possible risks that students and staff may face and that we know how to identify and respond to such risks effectively. By preparing for emergencies or a threat against our schools and students, we will be better able to identify, prevent, mitigate, respond, and recover from an emergency situation, protecting our students as well as our staff or visitors to our schools in a pre-planned, structured, and confident manner.
Taking action before the emergency occurs can save lives, prevent injuries, and minimize property damage in the first moments during a crisis situation. As such, schools should update and practice crisis plans each year to ensure that all staff understand and are familiar with how to plan for and effectively respond to an emergency. Teachers should understand these plans and their roles within them, allowing them to implement emergency response protocols with confidence and structure. Although every school's needs and circumstances are different based upon their layout, location, and population, there are 3 basic response actions available in an emergency situation. That is to lock down, evacuate, and shelter in place, or a combination of one or more of these actions. A very effective way to prepare to use one or more of these actions is to fully participate in the fire, lockdown, tornado, and earthquake drills schools conduct and to practice them in varied settings, looking for what vulnerabilities exist before an emergency occurs. The first of the 3 actions is lockdown. In a school setting, there are several reasons a school might need to lock down. One might be a visitor to the school who becomes irate and a danger to the school occupants. Another might be a non-custodial parent or former spouse of a staff member who attempts to obtain access and to intimidate or do harm. Yet another but highly unlikely situation is an armed intruder or active shooter who may be a student, former student, parent, or indeed someone who is not affiliated with the school at all.
During certain emergency situations, you may need to evacuate. Evacuation occurs when the school building is not safe or can occur once a lockdown situation is resolved. The general procedure for evacuation is to exit the building in a pre-planned way, finding an alternative route if exits are blocked, and accounting for staff, students, and visitors as soon as it is safe to do so. Whenever feasible and available, teachers should take class lists and go kits when evacuating.
The option to shelter in place is necessary when external conditions make it unsafe to leave the building, but where locking down in a classroom is not necessary. A special shelter in place is conducted for tornadoes and severe weather conditions. This is called the duck, cover, and hold. A combination of shelter in place and then a subsequent evacuation may be necessary during an earthquake. Again, in general, there are 3 response actions: lockdown, evacuate, and shelter in place. However, in the case of an active shooter situation or other life-threatening situations, additional action may be necessary. The remainder of this training will focus on the lockdown procedure and the other actions that may be warranted in an active shooter setting.
Active shooter situations are seemingly unpredictable and often evolve quickly. Rarely do individuals simply snap, and there are signs that staff can be aware of to potentially prevent an attack. The FBI and others have compiled an information sheet that is available in the accompanying manual for this training. Things to be aware of can include suspicious people watching a facility or taking photographs, or strange calls and unusual behavior by students, staff, parents, or visitors. You should never feel embarrassed when reporting suspicious activities to the police. Often this will help local law enforcement agencies to build up a picture which on the surface may look harmless, but when reports from various people are put together, it could indicate a threat before it occurs. Always report any concerns immediately to the police. Never take a chance. You may have heard of the 3 steps to survival that have been provided nationally as a result of the active shooter events that have happened in movie theaters, malls, and workplaces. These steps are run, hide, or fight. The standard lockdown procedure is to remain in a secure classroom or to find one quickly and go into the lockdown protocol. However, if you are alone or have no other alternative, then you should be aware of the other option of either evacuating your students to safety or, as the very last resort, fighting to protect them and yourself. Typically, students and staff should only leave a secure place and deviate from a lockdown protocol when instructed to do so by law enforcement officers or another first responder that it is safe to do so. However, in an extreme case when there is no other option and the threat is imminent and unavoidable, the situation may dictate that you run. If it is safe to do so, you should seek to evacuate the premises, telling your students which route to take and where they should go, and moving them well away from the school and to a safe location. You must try and maintain a confident and reassuring demeanor so that students follow your instructions quietly and calmly. Be sure to have an escape route and plan in your mind before you start to move. Ensure you account for all of the students, having a teacher's aide lead the students out with you, checking the last student out of the room or area if possible. Leave your belongings behind. Tell students to do the same. If necessary, break windows if you are on the ground floors to escape, clearing away glass and laying mats or clothing over the windowsill to prevent injury. If possible, you should have an adult climb out first to help students exit the window safely. Prevent individuals from entering an area where an active shooter may present a threat. Warn people to stay away without endangering yourself. Keep your hands visible if police officers are outside. Follow the instructions of any police officer. Do not attempt to move wounded people. Call 911 when you are safe. And most importantly, listen for special instructions over the intercom. This will increase your chances for survival.
The hide action is essentially the extreme version of the routine lockdown procedure. This measure is typically in response to when you have no warning of a threat versus a lockdown that is announced over an intercom. If evacuation is not possible, then you and your students should find a place to hide where the active shooter is less likely to find you. You may be at the school on the sports field, or you may be on a field trip. Your hiding places should be out of the active shooter's view. Provide protection if shots are fired in your direction, staying away from doors and windows as bullets can pass through these easily. Not trap you or restrict your options for escape if that is possible. To prevent an active shooter from entering your hiding place, you should lock the door, blockade the door with heavy furniture, hide behind solid objects such as filing cabinets. If the active shooter is nearby, then lock the door. Silence your cell phone or pager. Turn off any source of noise, such as radios and televisions. Hide behind large items, such as cabinets and desks. Remain quiet and ask those around you to also remain quiet. When reporting the threat to the police, you should remain calm. Dial 911 if possible to alert police to active shooter's location. If you cannot speak, then leave the line open and allow the dispatcher to listen to what is happening. Based on the plans in place in your locality, you can use the notification card system to alert the responding police to your situation, placing a colored card under the door or in the window, such as red card. There is a casualty and medical treatment is required, or there is an immediate threat from the active shooter. Green card. The classroom is safe and no immediate help is required. No card. The police will have to check the classroom as no teacher is present. As the very last resort, and only when your life or the lives of those around you are in imminent danger, then you may decide to attempt to disrupt or incapacitate the active shooter by attacking or distracting them. Some options may include throwing items and improvising weapons such as a chair, a phone, or another heavy object. You should seek control of the aggressor's hands in order to limit their ability to use a weapon. Hold on to these and do not let go. You should brief the students to escape while you are attacking or distracting the active shooter. Most importantly, if you choose this option, you must fight to survive. When the police or other first responders arrive, it's important to respond in a manner which does not present a risk to you or the students. Police officers will proceed directly to the area where the last shots were heard. You should brief your students, especially if they are older, on what to do if the police arrive to avoid accidental injuries during a rescue. You may ask yourself, what should I do? Remain calm and follow the officer's instructions. Avoid startling the officers or taking actions that they might misinterpret as being hostile. Put down any items in your hands and tell students to do the same. Immediately raise hands and spread fingers, instructing the students to do the same. Keep hands visible at all times, as the police will not know who the threat is. They are trained from the perception that hands kill. Avoid making quick movements toward officers or attempting to hold on to them for safety. Avoid pointing, screaming, or yelling. Do not stop and ask them for help or directions when evacuating. There are things that can and should be done before, during, and after an emergency to lessen the impact. Some key before actions include prevention. As we encourage students with bullying prevention, it is important not to be a bystander. The best way to prevent violence within the school setting is to be very cognizant of the climate within your school. Be aware of changes in student and staff behavior. Please report to a member of your threat assessment team if someone exhibits a behavior or series of behaviors that is concerning to you. Before actions also include training. This video is an important element of training and should be part of a larger discussion with school administration and local first responder partners. For instance, imagining an emergency occurring while staff and students are outside or in the cafeteria, and then discussing what you would do is an important next step in preparing for an emergency. Additional training scenarios and resources are provided in the accompanying manual. Important during actions are the lockdown, evacuate, and shelter-in-place response actions previously discussed in this training. After the emergency, there may be special considerations such as activating a reunification plan, setting up a family assistance center, and facilitating physical and psychological recovery. Basically, getting families reunited and getting back to the business of work and school as quickly as possible. In summary, the Virginia Center for School Safety seeks to provide a safe and positive environment for all students. While every emergency situation will be different, knowing what the threat is and whether to lock down or hide, evacuate, or shelter in place, and as a last resort in an extreme emergency situation to fight, will help you respond more effectively and confidently, better protecting yourself, your students, and others. Although none of us likes to think about anything bad happening, planning for emergencies, training and partnering with others is the best way to ensure that the emergency is resolved as quickly and safely as possible. Some potential partners for schools include more information about all hazards planning, the 3 response actions, run, hide, fight, and how to partner with others can be found in the accompanying manual. We would like to thank Risk and Strategic Management Corporation for developing this training as a charitable contribution to protecting the children of Virginia.